The moment I found out, everything I thought I knew about trust, love, and friendship crumbled right before my eyes. It wasn't just the betrayal that shattered me, it was the people I thought I could rely on. But that's the thing with betrayal, it doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes, it's the people closest to you who hurt you the most. Let me take you back, though, to when everything was right in my world. At least, that's what I believed. It all started with one of those nights, one of those warm summer evenings when everything seems peaceful, like life's just humming along. My kitchen smelled like freshly baked bread, and the radio was playing softly in the background. Chris, my partner, and I had just finished dinner, and I was clearing the table. There were no rushed movements, no tension. It was just life. I remember how the light from the window stretched across the kitchen floor, casting long shadows. It was a good evening. It was the kind of evening that made you think that things would never change. That night, we had a small dinner, nothing fancy. Just me, Chris, and Kelly. Kelly was my best friend. She was like the sister I never had. I met her years ago, at a time when I didn't think I needed anyone else in my life. Chris and I had been together for what seemed like forever. We'd built a life. A house, a dog, the little things you don't think about until you wake up one morning and realize that everything you've worked for could shatter in an instant. Kelly had been going through a rough time. She'd just ended a long relationship, and I could tell she was hurting. So, I invited her to stay with us for a while. It seemed like the right thing to do. She was always there for me when I needed her, and I wanted to give her the support she needed to get back on her feet. She moved in, and we made it work. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. We laughed together, cooked meals, watched TV shows late into the night. Chris, Kelly, and I made a little family in that house, and it felt right. I had no reason to suspect anything was off. But there's this thing about intuition, you know? It's like an invisible thread pulling at you, telling you that something is wrong, even when everything looks perfect. It started with the smallest of changes. Chris would come home late from work, just a few minutes, but enough to feel different. And then Kelly would be on her phone, always texting or whispering on the phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I didn't pay it much attention at first. People are entitled to their privacy, right? But those small things began to pile up. They began to gnaw at me, even though I didn't want to acknowledge them. I remember one afternoon, I came home from work early. The house was silent, too silent. I walked through the hallway and heard laughter from the living room. I thought it was just the TV, but as I walked closer, I heard Chris's voice. His laugh, it was that deep, low laugh he only reserved for me. But Kelly was laughing too. I stood in the doorway for a second, watching them. Chris had his arm around Kelly, and they were laughing, talking about something that was clearly private. I don't know why, but my heart sank. I couldn't explain it. It was a feeling of displacement, of something being off. Kelly's eyes met mine, and she froze for just a second. That's when I knew something had shifted. I didn't say anything. I smiled, said hello, and went on with my day, pretending that I didn't notice what was happening right under my nose. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it grew stronger until one night when everything came crashing down. It was late, too late, and I was lying in bed. Chris had fallen asleep beside me, his back turned toward me. Kelly had been out, and I didn't think much of it. She was probably at one of her usual hangouts. I reached over to grab my phone from the nightstand, and that's when I saw it. A text. From Kelly. I'm not proud of what I did next. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. The text was short, but it sent a cold chill down my spine. I miss you, babe. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Let's keep this between us. My heart stopped. It wasn't a simple text. It was a declaration, a secret. And I knew right then that something wasn't right. I put the phone down, trying to breathe through the shock. My mind raced as I tried to piece things together. What was going on? Was she involved with Chris? Could I even believe what I had just read? I needed to be sure. And that's when everything started to unravel. The next morning, I couldn't shake the image of that text from my mind. I tried to act normal, but my insides felt like they were on fire. Every glance at Chris, every word that Kelly spoke, felt like a lie. The tension was so thick, I could almost touch it. I had to know. I couldn't live with this gnawing feeling in my gut. But instead of confronting them right away, I decided to be patient. I needed to observe, to watch, to make sure I wasn't imagining things. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, to sit back and allow the doubt to eat at me slowly. The days that followed felt like they stretched on for weeks. I would catch Chris looking at Kelly in a way I had never seen before. It was subtle at first, just a soft glance, a lingering touch on her arm when they'd sit together on the couch, but I saw it. I wasn't blind. And the worst part? Kelly's laughter had started to feel different. It wasn't just the sound of friendship anymore. It was something else. Something more intimate. One evening, I came home early from work. The house was unusually quiet. It wasn't normal. I set my keys down in the hallway and went toward the living room. As I approached, I heard whispers, muffled but unmistakable. I didn't want to believe what I was hearing, but I couldn't ignore it. I stood by the door, just out of sight, and I heard Kelly's voice first. "You're sure about this, Chris? You're really sure?" And then Chris's voice, lower than usual, like he was hiding something. "I don't want to hurt her, but I can't help how I feel. You know that." My heart sank deeper than I thought possible. Every word felt like a physical blow. I leaned against the doorframe, gripping the edge for support as I fought to stay standing. "You're not going to hurt her," Kelly said, almost reassuring. "She won't know. We can keep this secret. Just a little longer." That's when I couldn't take it anymore. I burst into the room, my heart racing, my breath shallow. There they were, my best friend, the one I had opened my home to, and my partner, the man I had trusted for years. For a moment, neither of them said anything. It was like time had frozen. Chris looked guilty, but Kelly had the audacity to look calm. As if nothing had changed. As if nothing had been torn apart. "What is this?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and hurt. "What is going on between you two?" Chris stood up quickly, as if trying to hide something, but it was too late. I had heard everything. I had seen everything. Kelly looked at me, her face a mask of innocence, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't place. Guilt? Regret? Or was it just the coldness of someone who had betrayed you without a second thought? I didn't want you to find out like this," Kelly said softly, but the words felt empty. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. Just did." I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been sleeping with my partner, Kelly. And now you're telling me it just happened." Chris opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He was still standing, but he was trembling like a child caught stealing candy. He couldn't meet my eyes. I looked at him. Really looked at him, for the first time in what felt like forever. The man I thought I knew. The man I had given my love to, my heart. And now I saw him for what he was, a liar. A cheat. A man who had no respect for me, for the years we spent together. "I never meant to hurt you," Chris finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "I love you, I do. But Kelly, I don't know. I can't help myself." The betrayal stung in a way I can't fully explain. I didn't want to hear his excuses. I didn't want to listen to his pleas. Every word felt like a slap to my face. "I gave her my heart, Chris," I said, tears threatening to spill, but I refused to let them. I trusted her. I opened my home to her. And this is how you repay me. Kelly stepped forward, trying to comfort me, but I pulled away. I couldn't look at her. Not anymore. Not after everything. "I'm sorry," she said, but the apology didn't sound real. It didn't feel sincere. She had made her choice, and it wasn't me. It took everything in me to turn away from them. I didn't want to look at either of them. I couldn't bear it. I left the room, needing to escape, needing to breathe. I ran out the door, not caring where I went, just needing to get away. I remember walking down the street, not sure where I was headed, but knowing I couldn't stay there. I couldn't go back to that house, not with them in it, not after what had happened. The wind hit my face, cold and sharp, but it didn't matter. I felt numb. I felt like the world had tilted off its axis, and I was just a passenger, tumbling through the wreckage of everything I thought was real. That's when I made up my mind. I was done. I didn't know how yet, but I was done with them both. I spent the next few hours walking aimlessly. I had no destination in mind. My feet carried me wherever they wanted to go, but my mind was elsewhere, trapped in the spiraling thoughts of what had just happened. I was trying to make sense of it all, but there was no sense to be made. It was betrayal, pure and simple, and it cut deep. When I finally returned home, I didn't walk through the front door like I used to. I stood outside for a long moment, my hands gripping the cold railing on the porch, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to go back inside. I wanted things to go back to normal, to rewind the clock and undo everything. But I knew I couldn't. There was no turning back. Chris was sitting on the couch when I walked in. He didn't say anything at first. Just sat there, looking like he'd aged 10 years in a matter of hours. But I couldn't look at him. I couldn't stand to see him, to hear him. Kelly was gone. She'd left before I had returned, probably to her own place or wherever she had been hiding this whole time. The house felt emptier without her, even though she was the reason for everything unraveling. "I didn't want this, you know," Chris said, his voice hoarse, like he hadn't slept in days. "I never meant to hurt you. I swear I never did." I didn't respond right away. My mind was spinning with all the emotions I had been holding back. I wanted to scream, to shout, to cry, but I held it all in. I couldn't let him see how much he had destroyed me. "I know you didn't," I said quietly. "But you did. You really did, Chris." His eyes flickered with something guilt, shame, maybe even regret, but it didn't matter. It was too late for apologies. Too late for excuses. "I don't know how to fix this," he said, the desperation in his voice almost pitiful. "I can't change what happened, but I want to make it right. I'm sorry. I never meant for Kelly to be the one. It just happened." I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. His words, his hollow apologies, meant nothing. They couldn't undo what he had done. They couldn't erase the way I felt, the betrayal that had been etched into every corner of my heart. I had trusted him with everything, and he had destroyed that trust in an instant. "I'm done," I said, the words coming out quietly but firmly. "This isn't going to work. I can't be with you anymore." Chris stood up from the couch, his face contorting with a mix of frustration and sorrow. "Please don't say that. Please, we can fix this. We've been through so much together. We've built this life. Don't throw it all away." But I had already made up my mind. I was done. I didn't have the energy to fight for something that wasn't worth fighting for. He had chosen her. He had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. "I can't live with someone who betrayed me like this," I said, my voice shaking with the weight of the words. "I don't want this anymore, Chris. Not with you. Not with her. I need to move on." I couldn't look at him any longer. It hurt too much. "I'm leaving," I said, turning away from him. "I need space. I need to figure things out. I don't know where I'll go, but I can't stay here." I grabbed my purse, my keys, and walked toward the door. I could feel Chris's eyes on me, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. When I stepped outside, the cool air hit me like a wave, and for the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't care. I couldn't stay in that house. I couldn't stay in that life. The next few days were a blur of packing up my things, trying to find somewhere to stay, somewhere far from the life I had known. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I knew I couldn't stay in the place that had once felt like home. It was no longer a home. It was a tomb for my broken heart. As I loaded my car with the last of my belongings, I thought about the life I had shared with Chris. The dinners, the laughter, the late-night talks. I thought about the woman I had trusted, the woman I had called my best friend. And I realized something. I had given them everything, my heart, my trust, my love, and they had taken it all. But I wasn't going to let them take me too. I left that night. I didn't have a clear plan, but I knew I couldn't stay there. The city, the house, the memories, they all had to go. I needed to find myself again, to rebuild everything that had been shattered. And I would. Slowly, but surely. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something new. The days that followed felt like I was wading through thick, muddy water. Every step felt heavy, every decision a struggle. I stayed with my sister for a while, letting the dust settle. Her place was small, but it felt like a sanctuary compared to the chaos I had left behind. The first few nights were the hardest. I would lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet the storm of thoughts in my head. I thought about Chris and Kelly constantly. My mind couldn't help but go there, reliving every detail of what had happened, the way Chris had looked at me when I confronted him, the helplessness in his eyes as if he were a man trying to save himself from drowning in his own mistakes. And Kelly. I couldn't even bring myself to think her name without a sharp pang in my chest. But eventually, I started to heal. Slowly, the constant ache lessened, and I could breathe a little easier. I began to reconnect with friends and family. I started focusing on things that had been put on the back burner during all those years with Chris, things I had forgotten about while I was so wrapped up in the life we had built. One afternoon, as I was sitting at my sister's kitchen table, sipping a cup of coffee, my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me it was important. I hesitated before answering, but I did. "Hello," I said, my voice tight with apprehension. "Hey, it's me." "Chris," the voice on the other end said. It sounded like he had been crying. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my cool. "Chris, what do you want?" I just need to talk to you. Please. Can we meet?" "I need to explain." "No," I cut him off, the word sharp. "There's nothing to explain. You've already said enough. You made your choice, Chris. I don't need anything else from you." There was a long pause, then a faint, broken sigh. "I'm sorry, more than you'll ever know. I know I've ruined everything. But I miss you. I need you." I wanted to yell, to scream at him, to tell him how much he had hurt me. But something inside me, something deep and painful, told me I wasn't ready for that conversation. Not yet. Not with him. "Chris," I said, my voice low and steady. "I need to move on. I can't keep living in the past. And neither can you. But I love you." "I made a mistake, Kelly. I don't care about Kelly," I interrupted, my words firm. "I care about what you did to me. You betrayed me. You chose her over me. And that's something I can never forget." Another pause. Then, softer, "I understand. I'm sorry." "Goodbye, Chris," I said, my finger hovering over the screen as I fought back the lump in my throat. "Take care of yourself." I hung up before he could say anything else. It felt final, like closing a chapter that had dragged on far too long. But I didn't feel relief. Not yet. It would take time. As the weeks passed, I started finding pieces of myself that had been buried. I went for walks, spent time in nature, and even started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. It was the little things that helped me begin to heal. Slowly but surely, I felt the pieces of my broken heart start to fit together again. But it wasn't just the emotional wounds that needed healing. There were the practical aspects of moving on too, like the awkward conversations with mutual friends who still couldn't understand what had happened. Some tried to make excuses for Chris, or worse, act like it was just a misunderstanding. But I wasn't about to make excuses for someone who had hurt me so deeply. One evening, I ran into one of our old friends at the grocery store. At first, she didn't say much, but I could tell she was curious. The elephant in the room was hard to ignore. "So, how are you doing?" she asked, her voice tentative, as if she wasn't sure if she should bring up the topic. I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. "I'm doing okay. I'm healing. I'll be fine." She nodded, but didn't press the issue further. I appreciated that. There was no need for a public spectacle of what had happened. Not anymore. The truth had already made its rounds, and everyone had their opinions. The only one that mattered now was mine. Days turned into weeks, and I slowly started rebuilding my life. I found a new place to live, something small but cozy. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I filled it with the things that made me happy: books, plants, paintings I'd done, and photographs that reminded me of who I was before all this pain. I even started dating again. Slowly. There were moments when I wondered if I would ever be able to trust someone fully again, but I knew that I couldn't let one man's betrayal define my future. I deserved better than that. And so did Chris. One day, as I was unpacking a box of old keepsakes, I found a letter from Chris that I had saved years ago. I had almost forgotten about it. It was from a time when things were good, before any of the lies had started. As I read it, the memories of who we were together came rushing back. But this time, I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel regret. I felt peace. That's when I realized I was finally free. The freedom I felt wasn't instant. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic moment where everything clicked into place. No, it was a slow unraveling of all the pain I had carried. Every day felt like I was shedding an old skin, something that wasn't me anymore. I no longer had to wake up to the constant ache of betrayal or wonder what was happening behind my back. That weight had been lifted, little by little. I took my time, rebuilding not just my life, but my sense of self. It was like learning how to breathe again after being underwater for too long. And I had a newfound appreciation for the small things, the morning light pouring through my window, the smell of coffee brewing, the laughter of friends who had supported me through the worst. I started to see the world through a different lens, one where my worth wasn't tied to someone else's love or approval. It was my own love, my own acceptance, that mattered. And that was something I had forgotten for far too long. The phone call from Chris came a few weeks later. I knew it was him before I even looked at the screen. His number was still saved in my contacts, but I hadn't erased it. Not yet. I wasn't ready. 2. I let it ring a few times before answering. My heart was steady now, not racing like it used to. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice calm. I didn't think you'd pick up." Chris's voice came through, rough, like he had been crying. I exhaled, not out of frustration, but just a deep, quiet breath that seemed to let the tension melt from my shoulders. "What do you want, Chris?" "I've been thinking a lot about everything," he said. "And I need to apologize again. For everything. For hurting you. For betraying you. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm so sorry." For a long moment, I said nothing. His apology was like a distant echo, faint but present. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him exactly how much he had ruined me. But I had already said everything I needed to say. And I realized that holding onto that anger, that hurt, would only keep me stuck in the past. "You hurt me, Chris," I finally said, my voice softer now. "And I don't think I'll ever forget that. But I'm not going to hold on to this pain anymore. I've moved on. And I'm not going back." I could hear him on the other end, breathing heavily. I knew he wanted me to say something different. I knew he wanted me to tell him it was okay, to say that we could try again. But that wasn't who I was anymore. I had learned my lesson. "You don't have to apologize anymore," I added, my tone firm. "You've done enough. I'm moving forward, Chris. And I think it's time you did too." There was a long pause, and for a moment, I thought he might hang up. But he didn't. Instead, I heard him say, quietly, "I hope you find happiness." "I really do." The words hung in the air between us, but I felt no bitterness. No anger. Just a quiet peace. "I already have," I said, before hanging up the phone. I put the phone down and sat there for a moment, just breathing. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was just done. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The next few weeks were full of small victories, things I hadn't expected to feel so meaningful. I took the time to heal, to nurture my mind and body, to reclaim the parts of myself that had been buried for far too long. And then, one evening, as I was sitting on my porch with a cup of tea, I realized something profound. I didn't need closure from Chris. I didn't need him to say anything else. I had already found my own closure. I had already forgiven myself for the part one played in staying in a relationship that didn't honor me. I had let go of the guilt, the self-doubt, and the shame. I looked out at the sunset, the golden light washing over everything, and smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had had in a long time. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. As the weeks stretched into months, I found myself reconnecting with parts of life I had forgotten about. The joy of solitary moments, the quiet comfort of a good book, the thrill of rediscovering old hobbies. I took up gardening in the small backyard of my new apartment. There was something soothing about planting seeds, watching them sprout, and caring for them. It was a reminder that things could grow, even after they had been broken. I met new people. 2. There were tentative dates, small connections, but nothing that felt like it would sweep me off my feet again. I wasn't ready for that. I didn't need someone else to fill the void that Chris had left. I had realized, through all of this, that I was enough on my own. But still, there were moments, quiet moments, when I thought about Chris, about what could have been, about what I had lost. And sometimes I even wondered about Kelly. Had she regretted it? Was she feeling the weight of what she had done? But those thoughts were fleeting. I didn't dwell on them. I had learned the hard way that the only person whose feelings I needed to care about was mine. One afternoon, I was out walking through the park when I saw her. Kelly. She was sitting on a bench, staring out over the pond, looking more lost than I had ever seen her. She didn't notice me at first, so I stood there for a moment, just watching her. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel resentment. Just a quiet sadness for what had happened. It was like seeing a ghost of someone I once knew. Someone I had shared so much with, and now there was nothing left but a hollow shell. I took a step forward, then stopped. She hadn't seen me, but I knew this was my moment to face her, to take the power back. I had spent so many days wondering what I would say to her if I ever saw her again. But standing there, looking at her from a distance, I knew what I had to do. I walked toward her slowly. When she heard my footsteps, she turned, and for a moment, her eyes widened in shock. Then, just as quickly, her face shifted into an unreadable mask. "Kelly," I said, my voice calm but firm. I wasn't angry. I wasn't here for confrontation. I just needed to say my piece. She stood up, the weight of the moment pressing down on both of us. I didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to see you either," I replied. There was a long pause. I wasn't sure what else to say. But then I remembered something I had told myself during the worst of it, that I wasn't going to let anyone steal my peace. Not her, not Chris, no one. "I'm not angry with you anymore," I said. "I'm not holding on to that bitterness. But I need you to understand something. What you did, what both of you did, it changed me. It changed how I see people, how I trust people. I won't forget that. And I'm okay with that." Kelly looked down, as if the weight of my words was settling over her. She didn't say anything at first, but I could see her hands trembling slightly. "I never meant for things to happen the way they did," she said quietly. "I never thought about how it would hurt you. I'm sorry. I was selfish. And I regret it." I nodded, not out of forgiveness, but out of understanding. She had said what needed to be said. And that was enough. The apology didn't change what had happened, but it gave me the closure I hadn't realized I needed. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Kelly," I said softly, stepping back. "But this," I gestured between us, "this is over. We're done." She didn't fight it. There was no more justification, no more excuses. There was only silence. And for the first time, I felt that silence wasn't deafening. It was peaceful. I turned and walked away, leaving the past behind me once more. It was like walking out of a fog I had been lost in for so long. I had come face to face with the people who had hurt me, but instead of falling apart, I had walked away stronger. I had taken my power back, piece by piece, and now I was whole again. As I walked back to my apartment, I felt lighter. Not because everything was perfect, because it wasn't. I was still healing, still growing. But I had learned to take care of myself. I had learned to let go of what didn't serve me and to hold on to what did. And that was enough. As time passed, the days began to feel less like a struggle and more like a new chapter in my life. I wasn't the same person I had been before all of this. I was stronger, more aware of my own worth. I knew I couldn't go back to what was, but I had also learned that what was left could still be something beautiful. I took a trip alone one weekend. I needed the space to think. I rented a small cabin by the lake, surrounded by tall pine trees and the kind of quiet you can only find in the wilderness. It was the perfect escape from everything. I spent my days hiking, reading, and simply sitting by the water, allowing the sound of the wind and the water lapping at the shore to calm my racing thoughts. One morning, while I was having coffee on the porch, I received a text from an unknown number. It was short, simple, but the weight of it still hit me like a ton of bricks. "Hey, it's Chris. I just wanted to say I miss you. I still love you." I stared at the text for a long time, trying to decide what to do with it. Part of me wanted to respond, to ask him why. To ask how he could say he loved me when he had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But another part of me felt nothing. It wasn't indifference, but it was something close. I didn't need him to apologize anymore. I didn't need him to love me. I took a deep breath and deleted the message without a second thought. There was no closure to be had from him. I had already closed that chapter, and opening it again would only pull me back into the past I was determined to leave behind. It was a quiet act of liberation, pressing that button. I wasn't just letting go of the text, I was letting go of all the hurt and confusion that had come with it. I was choosing peace. Later that evening, I sat by the lake, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was a canvas of oranges, pinks, and purples, the colors reflecting in the water. It was beautiful, and in that moment, I realized how much I had changed, how far I had come. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who had trusted too easily, the one who had given everything to people who hadn't deserved it. I thought about the pain I had carried for so long and how slowly it had faded. The hurt would never completely disappear, but it no longer defined me. I had found a way to rebuild, not around the loss, but from it. And then I thought about Kelly. I had spent so much time thinking about what she had taken from me, but in the end, she had given me something too. She had shown me what I was truly capable of. She had shown me my own strength, even if it was through the hardest of lessons. I knew that I would be okay. I knew I would be stronger than I had ever been, and that I was ready for whatever came next. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be mine to navigate. The next few months felt like a blur. I kept myself busy, focusing on my work, spending time with people who made me feel whole. I traveled more, I started a journal to process my feelings, and I took up yoga again, something that had always centered me. Slowly, the edges of the pain softened, and my heart grew stronger. But more than anything, I learned to love myself again. And in that self-love, I found peace. One day, about 6 months after I left Chris, I ran into him again. It was at a coffee shop I used to visit often, a place I hadn't been to in a while. He was sitting at a corner table, looking, well, like the version of himself that I had once loved. But there was something different now, something that didn't quite fit. I stood there for a moment, watching him, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt nothing. It was a quiet, simple realization. I had moved on. I was no longer that woman who had been torn apart by his betrayal. I was something else now, someone stronger, someone whole. I didn't approach him. Instead, I took a deep breath and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving him there in that moment that no longer held power over me. And that was it. That was the final piece of closure I needed. As I sit here now, reflecting on everything that has happened, I realize how far I've come. It's easy to think that betrayal defines you, that the scars from the people who hurt you will forever be the mark you carry. But that's not true. The truth is, the power to heal lies within us. We don't always know it at first, but we are stronger than we think. When I think back to that moment, when everything came crashing down, when I found out what Chris and Kelly had done, I see it differently now. The pain was real, yes. But that pain is what led me to rediscover who I am. It led me to understand that my worth isn't tied to someone else's actions, that I am whole even when others try to break me. The healing process isn't easy. It's not a straight line, and it doesn't always happen in the way we expect. But it's possible. It's more than possible. It's a choice we make every day to let go of the hurt, to find strength in ourselves and in the lessons we learn along the way. To anyone out there who might be going through something similar, I want you to know this. You're not alone. You are not defined by the people who've hurt you. You are defined by the love you have for yourself and the strength you have to move forward, no matter how hard it gets. So, I ask you, have you ever had a moment that made you question everything? How did you find your way through? Share with me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if you found any part of my journey relatable, if it helped you in any way, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're in this together, and we always will be.